So, thank you everyone for. I really feel like I'm on a podcast. Thank you everyone for joining us. Really excited to be joined by you today, or me be joining you rather, for the screening of your film Abstraction Belongs to Us. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself, and I'll do the same for me, and then we'll get into the film.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Gaby Sahhar. I previously did a show at Quench, so it's really nice to be back. I'm a visual artist, but mostly painter, filmmaker. Do you want to do intro, Tammy? Then I'll talk about the film.
My name's Tamar Clarke-Brown. I'm a very long-term friend and supporter of Gaby's practice, curator arts technologies, Serpentine, and generally I think our practices, we often talk a lot about like world building and like speculative futures and things like this. Also, really big supporter of artists working from queer perspectives, queer artists.
We've kind of had an unofficial collaboration, me and Tabby, for like 10 years. Because basically, we both used to live in Streatham, and then we were always...
Oh my God, you're telling this story.
Well, no, it's just like... we always would support each other and consult each other on different curatorial projects, whether it's your projects or like more visual stuff or grants application and stuff. So we've kind of been in each other's careers for a long time, I would just say. And I think it's important to note because sometimes people think like curator-artist relationship is very like transactional, but here it's just been very like supportive, unofficial, and kind of underground in some moments as well. So yeah, just a little bit of context behind us talking today as well.
Yeah, and also I was really honoured to be, I was visiting you in Paris actually whilst you're making this film. So it's kind of a bit crazy to be able to see, like, from that moment of kind of, you know, seeing you make it and seeing all the different people that you're contacting and the process, and then have the final film here ready. So I'm really thankful that you invited me to speak with you today. Maybe we just start with a bit of an introduction about the film from your perspective. Like, how would you introduce the film?
Yeah.
What's it about for you?
So I guess I would introduce the film as a bit of experimental documentary. I was interested in making a film that's a little bit in between categories. And at the time I was making the film, I guess like the notion of the concept of being Palestinian was very like abstracted in a way. It was an experience that was, I guess, increasingly become more censored, altered, or associated with activism. And I just feel like, I don't know, I wanted to access that space and try and make a film about it, but more through the lens of like sexuality and gender studies or experimentation. So I would say the film is a research-based film. There were 6 interviews with other queer Palestinian artists between London and Paris, friends of mine, a network I'm part of as well, that we did where we asked like, it was a confidential interviews where we asked a series of questions. And then with the overlapping ideas in all those interviews, 3 like character profiles were drawn out. And then those characters are played on screen by 3 voice and on-screen actors basically, who look at the type of interconnectedness of their experiences. And essentially the film was looking at the psychology of what it means to be queer and to be Palestinian a bit in the last 2 years, and which spaces in cities can you maneuver through, and which spaces in cities maybe you can't, how the role of a Palestinian artist has changed a lot, and how applying for residencies and grants and being in universities was also a way of like survival in a way as well, and also how these 2 things, being queer, being Palestinian, culturally, sometimes geographically, could become a clash, and how that generated a lot of questions about how do you self-identify in those circles, and accepting that clash is a bit of an abstract space that generates loads of questions, and reclaiming that abstraction in a way as a type of identification. And essentially I think that's what the film is about. So yeah.
Because it's also, I remember you telling me about the idea to make the film, and I was really like excited but also surprised that I hadn't necessarily, from my own perspective, felt like I'd seen films from like a queer Palestinian perspective. Of course, films exist, but I was very interested that you also approach, as you say, one of the things that I noticed the most in the film is like the movement, and it's a kind of a documentary in a sense, a kind of like cinema verite kind of style. But when you're watching it, you really feel like you're on this journey with people. It's really it feels like it's really kind of a walking, talking, feeling type of experience. It's not something that's resolved, like you're saying.
Yeah, no, I think as well, like, I wanted to use like the type of the language of an action film in a way. There's a lot of movement in the film, a lot of city scenes, because I sometimes feel like storytelling or documentaries are quite like boring forms of cinema, and I wanted to tell these stories in a way which is like you're gripped, but you don't really know why you're gripped, and you don't really know who you're looking at, what you're looking at. And also a lot of the content in the film is sometimes associated with different imagery, maybe associated more with journalism or images directly from the Middle East. So it was interesting to see like that these stories, the narratives in the film are overlaid on top of like very beautiful images of Paris sometimes, or London, and like how the geographies are a lot, I guess, have shrunken in a way, and collapsed into each other a little bit, yeah.
For sure, because I feel like you don't. We're watching this film in Margate now. I watched it for the first time in London, and I think one of the things that it really affected me was that you don't. It's such a commuter space. The space that I was watching it from London is very much like there's all these stories, all these people that you're moving through all the time, and actually being asked to kind of identify with that movement as that movement carrying a story itself, or that kind of putting you in the position of being one of those moving bodies as well. For me, was really, really powerful. I'm also curious how did you go about producing that? Like, was there a specific, I suppose, cinematographer that you wanted to work with, or DOP, or?
Just like, I've always been fascinated by public space in general, and also I think when a film is slightly lower budget, I'm like, use what you got, use the kind of street is your cinema, is your studio. And so we shot the whole thing on a gimbal and with a DSLR, which is like a slightly smaller camera, in order for it to be more discreet and to get into certain spaces where you need like a lot of permits to like film. And also shooting outside does have its complexities. Like
I hear there was some stories during production.
I don't know, we got chased by the police a few times and stuff in Paris, and like these 5 police officers came up to us like, what are you doing, blah blah blah. But I also think shooting outside, seeing other people everyday life, like makes the film more relatable, I think, to an audience as well.
It's very alive, it's like you obviously in that sense of documentary, but there's always that contrast, I guess, with this. Also, maybe that's a question in terms of like fact and fiction, and where your shaping of the stories of other people comes in. How do you feel like that? How do you feel like that?
I don't know. I think as well, outside is such a vulnerable space for the human body. Like, the city is so hard, and like tarmac is hard, glass is hard, bricks are hard, and I always think about like the vulnerability of the human form just on a literal basis in those spaces, and essentially how every body that's walking on the street or something has multiple narratives in their body, or multiple stories, and how people from complex backgrounds, but in public space it's all very like neutralized or universalized through like just the everydayness and mundaneness of life in a way, and to try and like shift that perspective on public space, on society, and undo a type of bringing like subversion into the mix. I feel like it makes the stories more relatable, I think, in the film for me, and brings them away from this categorization process of putting things into boxes in certain spaces, of how we usually put things into sometimes like violent identity-based categories that work against you sometimes, and just put it out in the street, in the open.
And that's kind of one of the things that struck me first is the film starts with this very almost like X-Files, like almost like surveillance aesthetic where it's framed and you're not quite sure. It feels kind of a bit scientific, but it feels like suddenly, in a way, there's kind of surveillance feel where it feels like everything is, you're not quite sure where you are, you're not quite sure what's happening, but you know that you're being asked to kind of survey a scene a bit. Why did you choose to frame the film in that way?
Yeah, I think it was, I had made the film like without that filter, and then afterwards I was like, you know what, I feel like this film needs a type of visual aesthetic that identifies its beginning and end. And that was a good way to do it because it's essentially like the aesthetics of surveillance, policing, war, like this kind of infrared, whatever it is. It throws you off instantly to not being able to identify the people in the film or the city that they're in. So it was kind of aiding this notion of like collapse and the limitations within that aesthetic, basically. I think as well, I was just on a very basic level, just very drawn to it because, like I said before, it aids this notion of like peeling a layer off society and seeing actually what's really happening in people's lives and how societies are really formed and how people navigate cities and how the notion of like Paris or London in those scenes are blurred and look the same, and how in people's minds certain countries' geographies also look the same and form part of like a wider just network of space in a way. So
Kind of, I think when I first watched it, it made me think a little bit of photographers and filmmakers like Richard Moss, who uses like expired infrared, for example, expired infrared films, things like this to kind of present a new perspective on the rainforest, for example, or they're well known for doing a series that looked at the war in Congo by putting this like bright pink filter on it, and it's still one of my most like. That series is still one of my favorite series ever because it was just so visually arresting and really made me, I guess, snap out of my normal expectations of navigating a scene, navigating an image. But it's also I think it's quite a new direction almost for you as well.
I think I've always been interested in subversion, just in any art form, like subversive processes, subversive techniques, and for me that just sums up as well how life is essentially perverse in many ways, and just the barriers you face, whatever it is, like, I don't know, they're visible but they're invisible at the same time, and to bring that into like subversion aesthetics can kind of speak to that preservedness in a type of different way, I guess.
Also, it's surprising. Like, I guess we're in like the era. Well, maybe we have been in the era of filters in a way and continue to be in different ways. And it's still fascinating to me that such a tool can provide such a different entry point, or even bring a certain different type of audience into a conversation. Queer Palestinian perspectives, like that is also something that I feel like is needs new lenses, needs new perspectives, needs new voices to be able to I suppose engage people in the stories or engage people in conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think the queer Palestinian experience is like quite a complex one, and it's a space that's moving forward and then going backwards simultaneously. It's like a space as well, like many other spaces of marginalized group or intersectional movements or marginalized groups as well, that are looking for language and articulation around how to self-express or self-identify and all of this. And to bring in that filter into that space, I think is like, it's experimental, it's subversive, it's something I just wanted to try as well, to push it in different realms and different aesthetics as well.
Can you tell us a bit about what maybe anything that surprised you while you were making it? Because as you said, you were interviewing these. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you found the people that you were interviewing and what their stories were, and maybe anything that surprised you or anything that was maybe even a refrain for them that's come up in the film.
I think as well, making the film, like, if you're working with members of a community who are like from yours, but maybe like you have to build up trust. Like, Palestinians are very suspicious people. They don't want to share information. I don't know. It's in our DNA, I think. And so the context was that I had wrote a proposal to do this film on an artist residency in Paris. I went on the artist residency, but I had no money to make the film. I had, through the international residency program, I met a lot of Palestinian artists because they were connected to another residency in Paris, which is called like Artists in Exile, and it's specifically designed to work with artists kind of who don't have papers or coming from kind of more countries associated with war, and then they place you onto different residencies, and then through the residency network, artists then get visas and paperwork and stuff like that. And I thought that was super interesting because in the art world, through the residency network, we don't really hear of how it's used in order for immigration purposes and to get visas and documentation.
More infrastructures, like how art is also like a civic engine in that way, like it's helping people to actually build some infrastructure.
But it's also how like residencies are promoted. Like, they're not promoted in this type of way. It's kind of more of a subcultural thing that's happening. And through that, I met so many artists who were maybe like me, dual nationals, but more raised in Europe, who have Palestinian heritage. And also, some of the people I interviewed had just come from Palestine to France and didn't speak French and were like asylum seekers. So it was also trying to like collate the range in the experience of being Palestinian at the time. And I met so many friends for life as well. It was kind of hard to pinpoint people and do these interviews, like I said, but then I found that people were really supportive to the projects. Like, I was super transparent with everything, my intentions. I had said it was confidential and anonymized as well from the beginning, and paid everyone as well. The process of getting funding for the film was quite challenging, just due to the high level of censorship that's been happening in the last 2 years.
I was going to ask about that,
Yeah, and it was just like, so I was in Paris, no money, wanted to make this film. So I just turned to Arts Council in this type of naive way, being like, maybe they would do this, I don't know. And so I wrote to them, because I know they had changed like terms and conditions in their contract. It was changing quite frequently around whether you could fund things around political activism, freedom of speech. But then there was another term in their contracts that say they don't discriminate against ideas. So I was like, I'm going to try and push it through like that and less through an activist lens. And I wrote to Arts Council with my intention, and they said they couldn't tell me if they would or wouldn't fund it. So I contacted my support worker, because I'm so severely dyslexic. Tammy used to literally help me write a lot of applications back in the Streatham days. We wrote it together for 5 months over the course of like 2 hour-long Zoom calls, where we were very careful around the use of language and not using inflammatory language at the
So
term.
you still did have to navigate all of, tweak it in order to make what you wanted.
Yeah, remember at the time, like I think Keir Starmer had not recognised Palestine as a country, so you couldn't really say it. Like, there was a lot of censorship in the art world, specifically.
And continues to be.
And there continues to be, and it was like full-blown war. So it was like really hard to try to push this project forward. So we just used like linguistic techniques to get it through.
Do you feel like that has also been, I don't know, maybe one of the reasons why abstraction felt like an important thing to talk about or to move through, in terms of, I know you've been making kind of more sculptures and things recently that were talking about exactly like this list of words that was issued that you're not allowed to say, for example, and how abstraction has become, I guess, more of a tool, or maybe more of a necessary tool in times like this.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think as well when I was making this film, it was literally like the burden of representation hit me, where you want to do justice to all these stories and represent all these groups, but representation has its limits. And then I was like, I can't even do justice to all these stories. I'm gonna have a breakdown. So it's basically like, you know what? Nothing, like, these stories are interconnected, but they're also very unique and not interconnected.
Yeah.
So I was speaking to like this curator at the time in Paris, and she was like, why don't you just call it Abstraction Belongs to Us? And I was like, yeah, it is a space, it's an abstract space that is unanimously agreed in the film as a space that keeps generating question, and it's okay that there's clashes in your internal like psyche, psychology, or in your own identity and complexities, and that's okay, and that's like a way of self-identifying in a way and navigating through the world and avoiding to be put in categories or identity boxes. And
it definitely felt like that was one of the refrains that came up for people in the film. Like we're following these different characters, and a lot of them talk about the difficulties of moving between these spaces. But I'm curious if there was, I guess, anything that also came up that you were shocked people were expressing this, or that they were having that experience, also maybe within Paris specifically.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of stuff that was said, which were the usual kind of shocks of being a Palestinian person in Europe. But I think there was like, because it was a cross-cultural film, the concerns were different in the UK to in France in a way. Like the climate in France and in Europe generally is that it can be a bit more conservative than in the UK. I found in the UK we're a bit more punky, maybe, a bit more eccentric at times. And again, this is sweeping generalizations, but it just meant that like how that translated into these testimonies was slightly different. Battles and different things that kind of came out as well.
How I'm curious what because this is the third screening.
Yes, third screening.
Third screening. What type of questions and things have people? What's the response been so far from different screenings?
The screenings.
You've screened it at BFI.
Oh yeah. Sorry, getting distracted. So it's okay. Yeah, I mean, we screened it at BFI last week, and that was the global worldwide premiere. Like, I made it wanting to get it into BFI Flair, because that's a festival I really value and I really like. And so I was so over the moon for it to end up there as well.
Congratulations as well.
Especially
it's a huge achievement.
Like, I have no formal training as a director or in the film world. I'm very much coming at this from an experimental artist, kind of no funding background. So it was nice to be amongst all these like features who have gone to like Cannes and Venice and the Berlinale and whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like when it shows in the selection of like 5 shorts or whatever, it does stick out because it's a little bit in between genres. It's a bit more experimental, but the feedback's been really good, and the BFI have loved like showing it and screening it. And again, I feel like they're just happy to have it. I hope.
I mean, I think it's also it's always exciting to see, hopefully, like nerve-wracking, but also exciting to see how something is being received and that it is being received. And also, I don't know if you've had anyone say anything like negative about the film, or people have been more happy to be seen in a way as well.
I don't know, I think I've had mixed response to any film. Like when you make a film, people are going to hate it, people are going to love it. You know, some people didn't like it, so, and they told me straight up, and that's fine. And I'm like, that is cinema though. Like the amount of times I go to see a film in the cinema and straight away you're like, well, that was shit. Like it's very, cinema's out there like to be critiqued. It
should cause a reaction for you,
yeah,
for sure.
And it's out there to be critiqued. It's not like an exhibition, which is a bit more fluid, a bit more liminal, a bit more has loads of entry and exit points. Like in the cinema, you sit there for like 2 hours, you watch that film, you come out and you're like, I just wasted my life, or I love it. Like, you know, it's very black and white like that. So yeah, but then I've also had some amazing responses, mostly within the community of people like, wow, this is so cool. And obviously the people who contributed towards it, well, I've never seen anything like this. Like, I wish I could have seen this for my teenage self when I was younger, because my experience isn't always represented. Yeah, so
I think also, like you say, like coming at it from an artist film, like coming at it from that perspective is also so exciting to show like other filmmakers different, because you're not coming at it with the same, I suppose, set of tools sometimes, or the same maybe like limitations on how something should be. So it's always, you know, you've been doing your practice for how many years now? 25?
I don't know, like 2015 I graduated.
15 years? And all of those things that come in from you working with sculpture, from you working with painting predominantly, from you working with all these different, like the tactility of that, and the sense of, I suppose, like working with the material. For me, when I talk about the film as being like this, you know, you're moving with it. For me, one of the most powerful things about it is this sense of you being with the material. And it definitely feels like a film that personally, it's 12 minutes long.
Yeah, 12 minutes.
But I'd love if this was like, I don't know if you have plans to make it longer, or if you want to turn it into a feature or anything like that. Because personally, I'd really love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like because
not yet, we just did this one.
I mean, I would love to, because I've like, this is my second film that has gone to a film festival, which is kind of rare for me.
What was the first?
Truth and Kinship, which was made in the pandemic. So it's quite rare for me, because like I feel like every time you make a fine art film and it enters a film festival, it's like, oh my god, because obviously fine art film is like sometimes in that industry sometimes viewed as like the bottom of the pile, because it's like feature, shorts, fine art experimentation. So it's kind of nice when it actually goes straight to the top, and through that I've like met a whole other industry of like young emerging film directors who are getting funding and who are making it work and working on like short features. So I would like to do a short feature, maybe not research or documentary based, but actually just fiction or something like that, moving forward. And I know that's a project that might take me 5 or 6 years, because I was speaking to some other directors who are like, been working on this for 6 years.
Yeah.
And, like, you meet these, like at the BFI, I was meeting all these young directors, and they talk about it like it's their baby. Like they've been nursing it, getting funding, working on it in parts and stuff. And I would like to do that when I have the right economics in my lifestyle to try and make it work, basically. But yeah, to answer your first part of your question about the materiality bit, again, like at the BFI, as I was talking about this because it was last night, no one else was a painter. So I think that has helped me do a film through the lens of painting, of like your sketches, your composition, and the many layers that make it up. And I think that's the same aesthetics and the same visual choices I try and bring to cinema as well, that there are many layers like in the image, whether that's like sound, voice, construction, and to try and embrace the multiplicity of the image and not try and give single narratives, and so it is cross-cultural, like it has a certain like dynamic to it, unpredictability, and so a bit like a painting, like you don't really know how to read it, you don't really know what's going on, it could be this, it could be that, so yeah, I think that's like where the crossover lies, I think, for me. Yeah.
How do you think the film has changed your practice? By which I mean, whether that's like going back into painting or maybe perspective, or I'll let you answer.
I don't know. I think I've had to professionalize myself a lot because, like, I don't know.
Different types of like working with more people, or
well, just I think when you're an artist, like sometimes you want to, like, I don't know, be constantly experimental and like doesn't need to have like limits or whatever, but for example, to get a film into a film festival, to show it clearly, you do need to have a little bit of marketing around it, of a kind of clear image of what you're actually trying to say in it, And I've like brought that over a little bit to my painting side a bit, to try and be like, okay, well, rein it in, refine it a little bit. Like if you're dealing with an abstract space or something messy or gritty, how are you like marketing that or pushing that into the world? Otherwise it's just one big mess.
You mean like in a audience perspective as well, like thinking
A little bit, yeah.
audience first?
Like thinking what are people going to take away from this? Like why should someone who's not queer or Palestinian or whatever care as well? Like I don't know. I think you think more about the audience, like why should people care about these topics? Because there is generally a bit of a friction between sometimes the general public and learning. Doesn't always go well together. So it's like, how do you make things as well accessible?
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's really interesting, I think, especially now. I mean, I work a lot with, I suppose, artists that are working with like participation and interactive things. So and I'm always, I guess, thinking about, audience comes in so much now, especially because you often have to think about how audiences have changed with like social media, all these different things. So it's really interesting to hear you say that that's been a shift working with film in your practice. And I don't know how that goes back into your other work, but I'm curious to see what it will do.
I don't know, I think paintings are different.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I feel like I guess I'm still trying to work it out as well. But also you kind of have to not care too much what the audience think. Just got to do things sometimes and then learn, move forward, I guess. So.
I want to, because we have such a nice audience today, I also want to see if anyone has any questions that they want to ask, either formally or informally.
I'll ask an informal.
Yes.
Yeah, go
please.
for it.
I always like to know about the logistics of how things are made.
Yes.
So, what was like the team like that you worked with to make the film? Like, how many people did you have to work with?
Yeah.
How did that all come together?
Yeah. The stress.
That's what I want to know. I want to know about the stressful bit.
I mean, like, doing this film was one of the most stressful projects in my whole entire life. I swear to God, especially making a film between two countries.
Which was London and Paris.
London and Paris, like
England and
very
France.
stressful. Especially in Paris, there's more rules, more bureaucracy. Like, so it's kind of like navigating filming in public space. You need permits. You can't rent equipment. You have to go via production houses. It's like it's more official in a way. Like, whereas in the UK, you just go on Fat Llama and just do it. So that was already like a learning curve. But because I was in Paris for the year, I also had to renew my passport and do some other bits. Like I understood the system a little bit. So that was a learning curve. I think as well, building a team was quite hard because I knew I wanted the team to understand like the content and the concept and maybe have some understanding of the content. So I was looking for a DOP, but again, I just made the most about using the residency network to introduce me to people and work with people on a grassroots level and try and avoid the production houses and the permits and do things a bit more guerrilla style. Dushan as well, my partner, helped me loads. Like we did like use a lot of existing equipment that we had, I don't know if that answers the question.
You work with there were a lot of Palestinians on the team as well, French Palestinians.
I feel like 90% of the whole team was Palestinian or Lebanese, so that was kind of cool as well. And
amazing to have a team that is so connected to what you're making.
Or they had also done that residency and kind of had context basically. But yeah, it was a bit of like just me and Dushan just producing the whole thing, really, in a way. It was very kind of... We were trying to make it look more expensive than the budget was. And trying to be more ambitious. Like, normally to make a film like this, you would probably need 60k or something. The budget was 10. So it was like... And everyone did get paid. So it was like very, tricky manoeuvring all of that.
And you did get it from Arts Council in the end, did you?
We did, yeah. We did.
Yes.
So it was very surprising, but it was also like a relief in a way that they can still fund things like this that are also happening abroad, which was like interesting. Like it was a new kind of field working the funding dynamics for me as well, because I had only worked with smaller grants. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Another, like, maybe practical question that leads on from that. I'm not feeling very articulate, sorry.
No, it's fine. You're in the right abstract space.
What I actually loved that the film was short and only had these interviews with 6 people, because it left so much unsaid also, and that something I thought was really special about it was that it suggested that there are many interpretations of being queer and Palestinian as there are queer Palestinians. Not only that, but that there's different interpretations and understanding of that within the individual in a different context. And so within the work you got to this very intense complexity around the subject. But then you also were talking about, funding like grants and residencies being a source of survival, which is very true. But for those things, you kind of inevitably end up having to pigeonhole or encapsulate something, probably for the film festivals as well, this like single sentence that there is a violence to that. There's a violence to that identity politics where you just have to summarise and cram into like such. And I'm wondering how you navigate, it's obviously the way that you were talking about the Arts Council application, is something which you navigated that language so sensitively. I'm just wondering, how you navigate that real, I imagine it's quite a conflict, and how you keep that integrity to the work while it travels in these different contexts through funding applications, through production, through presenting it to the world.
I mean, I feel like you've just summed up the hardest bit about doing the film, because also like with the content of the film, I had 6 4-page interviews. So, and it is violent to edit those interviews, and then you have all these cut-off points, and there was like so many directions I could have gone in. But then I did want to focus more on like the area of like sexuality and gender studies, whereas I could have in a way made the whole thing about the artist residency grants experience as well. So I don't know, I guess I remember I worked with my editor, and he was saying that actually like when a documentary is constructed, it's a brutal process. Like as long as the audience has a sensation of the information that's being conveyed, like that's sometimes enough. But it's because he would work on documentaries a lot, and he was like, you're constantly editing it, but that's just like the nature of the role, and how you have to, I guess, deliver information across, otherwise it can be like a 3 to 4 hour long film. Originally I did want to do an hour long, but then the longer it was, it felt like because the film is quite direct and starts straight away, it felt like information overload. So I hope it was edited in the best possible way to be 10 minutes long, even though I know that some bits kind of go in some places and are not as covered as some of the other areas in the film, for example. But yeah.
Maybe just off the back of that, I'm just curious then how, because we were talking about your editing process, and we haven't necessarily spoken so much about your editing process, by which I mean, how did you then get yourself back into what you actually want to do, or were there certain questions or maybe influences or questions that you and the editor, during the editing process, that were in your head that helped you to digest all of this material and kind of shape it into what it became?
Well, I think like when it became to editing, I just wanted to say everything basically, but then
That's not editing.
No, I know, but this is why like you work with a editor who actually knows like what is the tolerance of someone who's going to watch this film, because also you want someone to walk away with an understanding of the film and not shut down and be like, what is that about? I'm so overwhelmed, like it's going left, right, up, down. So for me, I approached it with like, let's talk about everything, and then we did like summarize it and work together in a very like sensitive and delicate process, to even down to like every sentence, to try and be like, okay, is this covered, is this not? And it was also just generally in those initial 6 confidential interviews, it was like which ideas overlapped, because there were overlaps, and how can that be translated into an idea that's conveyed if you reduce the word count and stuff. So yeah, it was a sensitive operation, I guess.
Because it's also like talking about, we haven't, like documentary is in a sense, but it's also like you think about documentary as truth in a way, like documentary equals, in a way, you think in your mind equals truth, but then it's how do you, it's very interesting to think about communicating truth in a sense, or communicating a perspective that's not everything. It's like actually sometimes truth is a feeling, or like sometimes truth is a what people need to receive, like you're saying, is not someone's entire life story, but something that will give them enough information to maybe move differently the next day, or see someone differently the next day, or be in the world differently the next day.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think as long as you can get away a certain feeling or idea across, you've done a good job. But yeah, I try and not like overwhelm a viewer or audience member. So yeah. But I learned a lot from making this as well, of just how, and it also made me think how documentaries in general, when you're watching them, you're probably getting 10% of the story, but then we think that's just like the whole thing, but it's just a fragment, literally. And in a way, my documentary is just a fragment as well. So yeah.
We need more. Any final questions from anyone?
Maybe that's it.
Oh
yeah,
that's it.
I was just wondering
Actually, I
about,
do have another question.
you talked really briefly about the audience that you're trying to reach, but maybe could you talk about the participants and their experience of it too? Because
which participants? Do you mean the people?
the interviewees.
Oh, the interviewees.
Yeah.
So the interviewees, I was on the residency. I knew a few people just from family or my friends, and then I just was very open. I was like, I'm working on this research project where I would like to talk about this experience, which I think is underrepresented. Would you be like prepared to do a confidential interview with me, which then will be paired with other interviews, and bits will be played by a voice actor and an on-screen actor. And I did 6 interviews, would meet up.
And who are the people?
So they were all I guess queer Palestinian artists, but they were all just like on the residency or in London through previous like friends that I kind of knew a little bit. I guess that's, I don't know, am I answering it or maybe
I was
not?
wondering if you had any feedback from them about the process of having their voices heard in this.
Have they all seen it? Yeah.
Everyone has seen it and everyone has loved it. I was very nervous whilst sharing it back, because obviously you want to do justice to what someone's saying.
Yeah.
So I think they felt pretty comfortable with the whole process to be involved deeper and to, I don't know, also we still continue to be friends, and they did like the film. But it's obviously like it's a burden to kind of, like, you don't want to come across extractionary and like, I don't know, take these stories and do this, and people telling you confidential stuff, but it was more for like a bigger collective cause in a way, and I think that's what they entrusted me with it, and so yeah, but yeah.
It's I feel like I'm just excited for other people to see the film now. I think it's really such a powerful film, and I'm really happy that you were able to come to this point in finishing it, completing it, and that you're happy with it. Congratulations. Thank you for having a conversation with us today.
So, yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you. Oh, actually, one last thing. If people want to find out more about your work, how can they find you? And where else might it be screening?
So you can go on my website or my Instagram, and I try and keep updated with the screening schedule, but it will it'll be screened like across Europe a little bit and go to a few other smaller LGBT film festivals. Because the BA5 flair kind of like pair you up sometimes, or more people see it, or we'll do like other project-based things like that, where there is a bit of a conversation around the work, hopefully, to kind of also, access some of the themes in it a little bit more. So cool. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Gaby.